actually the data and the way that you track data, that you collect it, is able to actually influence better positively the creativity. And I think, as marketers, this is really interesting as we move toward being more data driven, not to lose that creativity element, but also not to consider them in opposition, but actually data can fuel creativity the other way around.
Welcome to How I Made It in Marketing from Marketing Sherpa. We scour pitches from hundreds of creative leaders and uncover specific examples, not just trending ideas or buzzword-laden schmaltz, real-world examples to help you transform yourself as a marketer. Now, here's your host, the Senior Director of Content and Marketing at Marketing Sherpa, Daniel Burstein, to tell you about today's guest.
It was the weirdest feeling when I started as a copywriter. All of a sudden, I was in the room, fresh out of college, and the team would turn to me, and I realized, oh, wait, I'm supposed to know the answer to this. This is my job now. So I had a similar feeling many times throughout my career. There was really no official knighting ceremony to let me know I should lead. I often just saw a void and stepped in to help. And the leadership title and position would come after I took on the responsibility of leadership. So when I was reviewing a podcast guest application, I instantly resonated with this statement. At no point in your career does anyone tell you, now you can start making decisions. That's just one of the lessons we'll learn from today's guest, Francois Xavier Reodo, the Chief Marketing Officer for North America at Capgemini Invent. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Daniel. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
And Francois Xavier, I appreciate you go by FX, so I won't have to use my French accent as much. We could just call you FX. Let's look at your background here. You've been at Capgemini for the past 10 years. You were telling me you recently came back from Hong Kong, where over about 8 years you built a team of 25, grew the revenue, and now you're managing a team of 5, and you're about to start growing them. So tell us about your role at Capgemini.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm part of Capgemini Invent, which is the innovation and transformation powerhouse of the Capgemini group. And what Capgemini Invent does really is to bring to life what's next in terms of business model, operating systems, organization of businesses. And we operate and play in 3 playing fields, actually. The exciting domain of what we call customer first, which is really the way that organizations interact with their customers in terms of experience, in terms of campaigns, in terms of brand. In the second playing field will be the enterprise, what we call the enterprise transformation. Enterprise transformation is around of course, the way a company operates its business, whether it is HR, pay system, procurement, and the new space and exciting space of the intelligent industry, from complex engineering solutions to digital manufacturing, automation, supply chain. A lot of companies and organizations are looking at the moment on what's next for their business and how they can accelerate and bring innovation along the full life cycle of their products or services. And this is really what we help them do.
That's exciting. When you say the words customer first, my ears perk up, because in Marketing Sherpa a few years ago, we did some research into customer first marketing. We're amazed at how effective it was. Let's take a look at some of the lessons you've learned in your career and the stories behind them. First, from the things you made. You mentioned, this is a great lesson, always have fun. This is a great one to start with. So tell us, how did you learn this lesson, always have fun? You're talking about some serious stuff there that you just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really something that I learned very strongly in my career, and actually, this is really a value that I try always to lead with my team and with the people that I work with. Capgemini about 3 years ago signed a global partnership with rugby and rugby sevens in particular. And rugby sevens is a really fast-paced sport that happens during a competition that lasts for a few days. The way that Capgemini engaged around rugby seven was around 3 elements of KPIs, which are around employee engagement and mobilization, like motivated people around the values of rugby, making them part of something that is cool, around what we could client intimacy, so bringing our clients to the game, creating a relationship with them on the values of rugby, making them aware of what rugby is, particularly here in the US or in Asia. And the last piece is brand awareness, so basically placements around the stadium and placements and inside and outside stadium activation, actually. And it was a huge program for us. We had rugby competition everywhere around Asia Pacific, and it was a huge take up for myself myself and the team, and a lot of work. It comes. It's very stressful, very busy, and really, as we were going into all of those things that we needed to do, host 100 clients in the suite, in the hospitality, bring our colleagues on board, communicate, and find and kind of build messaging around the sponsorship. I realized that hey, let's take a break and also enjoy this a little and what's happening. And I think we had that policy as a team to kind of making sure that everybody had time to also kind of engage around the sponsorship and appreciate the rugby, meet with some of the players. Myself, we had a huge spade, which is our logo costume that was going around the stadium and things like that. I did it myself, which was a super fun thing. So kind of taking a break and taking a step back and being able to kind of enjoy something that was super fun as well and find value and richness in it is really something that was important and that I kept now throughout all of the projects and all of the campaigns that we run. Always tell my team, wait, let's enjoy this.
Yeah, so let me get that straight. You dressed up as the mascot and we're going through the stadium?
Yes, I did that. And actually in Singapore, I don't know if you're very aware of the weather in Singapore, but it gets super hot. So there was a very small fan inside the mascot, not to be completely sweating and stuff. And that was really fun. That was a really cool experience that then I've been able to tell to some of our execs, etc. I did not manage to convince my CEO at the time to do it, but I did try.
Well, that's a way to lead from the front. And this is why I think that lesson is important. I mean, it sounds kind of like a cast off, but, Marketing Sherpa, we used to have events for many years, big events, and I would run the content for it. And when you're working, it's so easy to forget that fun part because you're focused on a million different things, right? You've got your KPIs going on. When's this person going to show up? What are we going to talk about here? All these different things. But then I would realize, and you talk about being customer first, the customer was having such a different experience, right? The attendees there were having such a different experience. They're just having fun. And so if I come at it when I'm interacting with them with just this all business mindset of operationalizing, getting this all stuff done, that's not the right experience for them. And then you also stop and, like you said, for yourself and look around and be like, this is kind of cool. This is a kind of cool thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this notion of experience is really strong in basically making sure that people have emotions. And, the brand affinity will always come through that emotion and your message will always be carried forward and impactful if you manage to create that emotion. And the best way to do it as a team when we are actually creating an event or a sponsorship or a moment for our brand is really to carry this emotion together as a team as well first and a culture in the team before kind of being able to share it with the customer.
Yeah, and here's the other thing I've noticed. I used to work in software companies before working here, and I think this is especially true in the age of COVID. Maybe you've experienced this too. So when I would work at software companies, even when you're working for a specific geo like EMEA or APAC or anything like that, it's very distributed, right? Very distributed. And so a lot of times your interactions with customers and with your own team are, back then it was even before video calls, it was just on, audio calls, conference calls. And so when you have those experiences, like, yes, you could very efficiently conduct business, right? Like we could efficiently conduct this conversation, but what was missing was the side conversations and that enjoyment. And so as it sounds like Capgemini very digitally focused company, working on, sounds like a little digital transformation. What does that fun component mean to when you're actually getting there, not only with your own team who might be distributed, but getting with the customers and getting that interaction that we as humans crave, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for us, it's always, the sponsorship has always been around, being the innovation partner of Rugby 7. So the way that we've been able to kind of start a business conversation on the back end of a cool experience was really to be able to show what it is that we can do to digitalize rugby and to create more digital experiences around rugby. So we've created, VR sets where people could play. We've created some apps and digital services around the Rugby Federation that helped kind of basically carry that basically showcase that capacity to innovate in something that is a sport and really not be only a sponsor of the rugby, but really doing our part in order to bring our capabilities and our story to that game. And I think that's something that made us very relevant and able to kind of promote our brand and show the messages around the brand really strongly.
There's actually the next question I was going to ask you, because when it comes to sports sponsorships, actually I had an earlier podcast interview with Carlo Cavalloni, the global chief creative officer at 72 and Sunny, and he was talking about a sports sponsorship. I don't remember, it was World Cup or skiing. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but he said sometimes sports sponsorships are so difficult because the brand doesn't relate to that sport at all.
Yeah.
And so the difficulty is, how do you show the value proposition through that sports sponsorship? And I remember earlier in my career, I worked with a software company. I was contracted with them called BEA Systems, which ended up getting bought by Oracle. But they sponsored the Indy Racing League, and they were having trouble with, the sponsorship wasn't working out so much with their customers because the customers didn't see a big connection. And then I was fortunate to be able to come in and help with the invitations, and there was actually a very obvious connection between the Indy Racing League and BEA Systems because Indy Racing is a lot about engineering, and BA Systems is a lot about engineering and hardware and software. And so once you kind of made that connection for the customers, the company, the sponsor, got a lot more value out of it. And it sounded like you were thinking the same way. So yes, let's always have fun. Rugby, it's a fun sport. But it sounds like you're saying, how can we showcase our value proposition through this sponsorship?
Absolutely. And beyond that, I think it's really important to also mention how you basically manage to mobilize employees and engage colleagues around those sponsorship. I will give you an example. I think Capgemini and Capgemini Invent have a strong history that is related to rugby. As actually our founder, Serge Kampf, was a really, really big rugby fan and has always been sponsoring on his personal basis some of clubs in France and been pushed rugby as something that was really important for him. The 7 values of the Capgemini group are all related to rugby. As a matter of fact, there are values that are taken from the rugby world. So we really, from the beginning, have that connection with that sport from the beginning from when we were founded 52 years ago to today. So that sponsorship also from the story that we were telling our colleagues and the way that we were attached to rugby, the values that are running rugby as a sport, team spirit, fun. All of those values are also the values of our group, and that was also a good way to mobilize people around it.
I think that's a great lesson for everyone. If you are looking for a sponsorship, don't just randomly slap your name on anything and say you can get some branding. Look for something that's relevant, ties into your value proposition, ties into the company culture. Let's talk about the next lesson, which is somewhat relevant as well, too. You said build communities and coalitions. So tell us the story behind how you learned this lesson.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that I've learned more than once in my career, and I think is really important for everyone. I think there is only one way that you manage to push your message across, that you manage to be successful, is always to build, a coalition with partners that are bigger than yourself, and to kind of outreach and create that circle of relevance beyond your organization. For me, I'll take one example, and Capgemini is very strongly attached to that idea of innovation. That's a very strong element for us in our value proposition and in what we want to bring to our customers. And in Asia Pacific, innovation means to understand at best the innovation ecosystem in South China. China has a policy-making agenda in the what they call the Greater Bay Area in the South China in favor of innovation, where they're putting together, a lot of venture capitalists, a lot of innovators with Tencent, Huawei, and other players like this, and are creating a lot of startups in this area in South China. And I think international businesses all want to understand what's there in terms of the fast adoption by customers of technology, the full digitalization of payment, all of the what's next in marketing as well to the Asian audience, and all of this is coming together in that Greater Bay Area in South China. And as an organization, of course, we wanted to understand best how that was working and how to bring some of that values and some of the learning to our clients globally. And what we did is we sponsored a conference in South China that is run by Web Summit, which is named RISE, that is putting together basically corporate and venture capitalists and startups in one big tech conference, in the same way that you may have Viva Tech in Europe, or you may have CES Las Vegas here in the US. And the idea really was to how do we kind of build those connections. And at the occasion of this conference, we had the opportunity to meet with Chad Xu, who is the founder of Zoe. Zoe now is not really famous in the West, but is to Xiaomi what Foxconn is to Apple. So very large experts in manufacturing in South China. And Chad is a very interesting guy because, of course, he IPO'd a few weeks back, and now he's thinking around ways to kind of give back and how he can innovate and how he can bring his knowledge and his know-how to the next generation. So he's created a VC in South China that is focusing on hardware startups. And so we have connecting with him, and we invited him to speak actually at one of our internal sales kickoff. And that event, that connection has allowed us to kind of create that connection and that integration into that innovation ecosystem in South China. And at some point, Chad and decided, we had several conversations back and forth, and actually we decided to build our applied innovation exchange in South China within Shenzhen Valley Venture, which is his venture capitalist firm, to be able to kind of connect, both our ecosystem and his, and be able to kind of cross leverage. And we've created in one place that giant manufacturing hub for startups, in which from a product ideas in the West, they can go to manufacturing, test environments, 3D printing, marketing capabilities really fast, and even incubate and be invested. Capgemini, of course, we brought, the organizational know-how, the access to our global corporate clients, the innovation and that we were able to put together, and he was bringing the know-how in manufacturing, in access to the ecosystem in South China. So that has been a very great way for us to build our story in terms of how to interact and how to understand China innovation landscape. And I think that is a way that we bring value to. We brought value to our customers and to our brand as well, in being able to tell that story.
So that's great. So I'm kind of curious about the before, right? So you're in an emerging area. So I think Shenzhen Valley was kind of where you're looking. You're originally from France. You're going to work at Singapore. So yes, this is a beautiful story at the end where you found the right guy, you found the right company, you found the right partnership, you built it. But how do you get a sense of a new landscape, and how do you understand who are the right folks to partner with, right? Who are the right folks to sponsor? And so I'll give you an example that we're dealing with right now, right? When we look at the world of Web3 and NFTs and all of these things, right? It's maybe not a specific geographic area, but it's a new technology area. And I think many marketers right now listening and many companies are facing the same thing you're going through. We probably feel like we need to find that right partner. We need to find the right group, or the right group to network with, to kind of bring us into this, that knows it. But who really knows what they're doing and who's just faking? You know what I mean? So how did you get in there on the ground and identify Chad Zhu and his company to begin with?
Yeah, honestly, your question is spot on. That's why I always think that of that idea of coalition, it's really important to understand that you cannot do everything by yourself, and you cannot always kind of bring the full value on the spectrum. Building those partnerships is really key, and identifying the right people is. And I think, kind of having a third party that is allowing you to introduce yourself to those new markets, those new areas, those new ideas. In our case, that was, Rise with the global brand of Web Summit, kind of, giving that authority and that credibility in terms of making that introduction, and I think that's what made it successful. But going at it by yourself and kind of building a story from scratch without building that coalition first, I think it would be a mistake.
Yeah, let me ask you too. You mentioned, I thought it was really interesting, Chad speaking at your internal sales kickoffs. I mentioned, I used to work in software and sales enablement, sales kickoffs. And so, when you're doing an internal sales kickoff, for sure, you're trying to get the sales team excited, but also focused. And hey, here's what we're selling this quarter, and here's, what the numbers are, and here's how to hit them. So what were you hoping to get from Chad speaking to that group, and what was he getting in return?
Yeah, I think the only thing that he was getting in return, to be honest, was the ability to network with a new group. And actually, he was already probably seeing the value of that possible kind of collaboration, or at least understanding from us what we were interested in. I think from our perspective at that time, what we really wanted was to understand better the ecosystem that he was a strong part of. And that's really what his presentation was about. What is the greater Bay Area? Who are the players there? What is the dynamics on the VC and the startups? And he was giving a really kind of almost like kind of macroeconomic presentation of everything that was happening. I think then what happened, and that's a little bit the magic of this kind of thing, and we go back a little bit to the idea of experience that was part of the first point, is that he had the opportunity to network with our salespeople, our leaders, myself, and to build a connection and the discussions that then resulted in us working together in that applied innovation exchange in Shenzhen.
That's great. Anytime you're moving into a new area, whether geographically, like you're mentioning in China, but really, like we said, technology-wise, for your sales team, for your marketing team, for everyone that's customer-facing, even everyone internal, it's funny, you're really venturing to a new land, even if it's a new technological land, and getting that team comfortable with interacting around it, with speaking that language, with talking fluently about it. I think there's two levels. There's one level of where you just give like your sales team the information, say here's information, and now send them out in the world. But there's another level where you build that comfortability up. And I would think bringing in a guy like Chad where they can interact directly with him just kind of gives them more and more comfortability. Now when they're going out to customers or going out to clients and they have to talk through this, they feel kind of a little more like natives, or at least, like people who've gone there and have a sense of mapping out the territory, right? I mean, is that a challenge when you're talking about this emerging area?
Yeah,
That enablement?
I think in any area that you expand from your story, from your channels, you're always going to be lacking at the beginning at least of the credibility and the authority, so that ability to build a coalition, be referenced by the third party, and that's particularly true in our business, for instance, where we have a lot of analyst outreach and things like that, is to basically be associated to somebody that is an authority, somebody, a brand, and other story that is a credibility in this domain. So I think for me, in everything that we do, there is always that element and angle of who can help us carry that message and not just ourselves kind of pushing it. And of course, there's always like, how do we build a message together? But then there is also the association from the brand perspective, from the business perspective, and then bringing that to market.
Great. Now, when you're talking about either getting into a new geographic area, getting into a new technological area, building a business, anything, I love this next lesson because it's really the challenge for marketers. There's so much available to us now. I remember early in my career, we had newspaper ads, TV, radio, direct mail. There was a few things, but now the tactics are endless. And so when you talk about building a business, you're building one right now, you say ruthlessly prioritize. I love that. Not just prioritize. I love the idea, ruthlessly prioritize. So tell us about the business you're building now and how you are ruthlessly prioritizing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a message that I keep sharing, both to, the rest of the organization and to my team. It's always, like, what's the story, etc. And I think because I mentioned it before, we're operating in 3 different playing fields. We're pushing a lot of capabilities and solutions to the market. We're packaging our business, and we have a giant, organization. We are more than 300,000 people worldwide. So we do have a lot of stories and a lot of things that we want to push to the market. And here at the moment in North America, I think Capgemini Invent is really has a very strong story to tell because of that. But is how we decided to basically tell it through 4 area of focus that we kind of decided to privilege over and kind of put together for the market. The first area of focus is for us is really how do we bring innovation along the full product life cycle. They could be digital products or physical product, but Capgemini Invent right now in North America is one of the only players that is able to bring that innovation at every step. From design, we acquired Frog, which is a major design firm, to complex engineering and IoT. We acquired a company that is called Synapse, to then the way that a company manufactures, etc. So that idea of let's not kind of go to market with all of those different small capabilities and small package offers, but through very key stories that are very, very, very simple and understandable. Innovation along the product life cycle is a way that we can be impactful on the market. The second big pillar is what we call tomorrow advisory. So that's basically niche strategy skills for CEOs. The third one would be how do we operationalize digital transformation? So that's not that's just our bread and butter as consultant. And the fourth one being around the smart use of data. So how do we collect and visualize data for business decision making? So telling those 4 stories in the market and kind of simplifying our messaging around those 4 stories to accelerate our growth is really what I'm focusing on at the moment. We are in a marketing organization for a B2B organization, so this is not a place where marketing necessarily, is the most valued, at least on paper at the beginning. And if you don't lead through the conversation and not ruthlessly prioritize, it's very easy as a marketing team to end up on the receiving end of the marketing plan. Where people will go to you and say, "Hey, by the way, we've we've put this together. Can you put it on the website? Ruthlessly prioritizing is really being able to drive our storytelling from the priorities and build the plan accordingly. So that's for me exactly what we're doing at the moment. Where is the my CEO Craig McNeil, we kind of bring that focus and that vision and translating it into not necessarily a lot of marketing tactics, exactly as you said, but key moments during the year at which we go big, because of course we have limited means, but we want to grow fast. So rather than doing a lot of things small, we do only a few things big. That was one of the big kind of arbitration that we take at the beginning of the year, and that's also what I mean by ruthlessly prioritizing our activities.
I love that. Yeah, I've heard that called tentpole marketing, kind of borrowing from Hollywood. Well, you were mentioning customer first before, and we did some, like I said, we did some research into customer first marketing. We found there's a huge difference in how well a company performs when the customer gets to feel like their needs are being put first. And it kind of reminds me of, we've got a free digital marketing course that's taught by Flint McLaughlin, and he teaches in section 18, a value proposition focuses on a specific customer segment, right? Customer first. It all begins with the customer. So when you're talking about this, when you're talking about those four key messages to communicate, I feel like essentially you're talking about that value proposition. So when you're prioritizing, does it begin with identifying that ideal customer set and figuring out what services you can bring them that no one else can, or that you can do better than anyone else?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. You're spot on, actually, because the way that we looked at it is really who are the people that we want to talk to, right? Capgemini, from a historic perspective, is an IT services firm, and we're really kind of that smaller entity within the organization that's looking after innovation and transformation. And really, what we do for the rest of the company from a brand architecture perspective is really to be able to move from the CIO, the CTO, who we talk very well and we speak the same language, to different stakeholders in the organization, and type of being able to have more strategic conversation as well around the way that their business is transforming. And all of those pillars, if you look at it, they are very, very focused on strategy. Tomorrow Advisory we have built personas around the CEOs, and the COOs. The transformation piece is also around the CHROs, because there is a huge piece at the moment around the future of work and people trying to understand, basically how they can build hybrid model, a third space, new KPIs and data to track in an organization that is more fluid. So the CHROs is one. Then I think because of the customer first kind of playing field, we are slowly increasing our relevance to the CMOs and the chief design officers. That is also why we have decided to integrate Frog, into Frog, which is a brand focused on design, into a core value proposition. And chief data officers and is also the last kind of persona that we are trying to tackle on. So when we built our story and where we built our campaign, we really look into what's our current relationship with them and our clients, because in the organization, where can we extend that relationship? Where are they? What are they reading? What are they doing? And how do we kind of integrate ourselves into their conversation, their what they read and what they consume as information, and how do we make ourselves relevant to this audience? So persona, kind of who do we want to be relevant to? How do we prioritize in our messaging to be relevant to those people? And then, of course, track and report on results.
Okay, great. So the first half of the podcast, the first beginning of the podcast, we talk about some stories and lessons from the things you made, right? Now let's talk about some lessons from the things you made them with. And this next one is from Alva Ken, the Executive Vice President for Strategy in Asia Pacific at Capgemini. And you learned that at no point in your career does anyone tell you, now you can start making decisions. So tell us, sister, how did you learn that lesson?
Yeah, that was really, actually, Alva is one of my mentor. She was the head of strategy and sales at Capgemini in Asia Pacific, and she has been my manager for quite some time. And she is really the first person that made me understand that I can lead whatever at whatever grade or level of hierarchy and responsibility I am in the organization. And I think that sentence, as you say, is just from her. And I think that's really something that we need to all understand, is that there's not a moment in your career where, your boss comes to you and tells you, well, now, you can take decisions. It's just that you kind of always kind of assess yourself a little bit on, this decision, I can take it right now, and then I can try to influence the business and go in that direction. And I think that completely transformed my mindset, and my mindset moved from really kind of being able to do amazing campaigns and report on them in terms of data, etc., into basically lead the way that as a brand, we build market share, we augment mind share, and we mobilize our people. And I think considering myself as a lead in this domain rather that somebody who impacts it, I think has completely changed my mindset. And going back to the points that I did earlier, and I think a lot of people and marketers will probably kind of also relate to that, which is sometimes you are the business has a lot of expectation for you and come to you and kind of with requests for campaigns. They want to push a new offer, etc., and kind of reverse the table and think around. No, I'm the one taking the decisions there, and I'm the one driving the one driving the marketing and communication strategy, and then kind of putting it into reality and campaigns, etc., has completely allowed me to position myself well in the organization and to grow fast. So there's a little bit of almost like a positioning element from us as a marketing team in the organization, in the way that we interact with the rest of the organization, advise our CEO, sometimes decide on some of the decisions that we want to take, and how then we kind of influence the business to move in that direction. And I think that has completely transformed that has been a huge accelerator in my career to just consider this very differently.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I've heard people talk about it before too, as going from someone who works at the business to as someone who owns a business, that kind of entrepreneurial mindset. If I was one of the business owners, how would I act?
Absolutely.
But the other key thing that to follow up on what you said is, you talk about customer first. I think the marketer in the organization is the one that owns the customer relationship and has to be that internal advocate for the customer, right? When everyone's coming at you with all these ideas and stuff,
absolutely.
Is it like, are you the one then that says, okay, let's look at this from a customer perspective. What does this mean for the customer?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really often that we kind of take that mindset and say, hey, what's the story? That's just not the story about us doing something. It's not very interesting. It's the story around, what is the problem that we are trying to solve for that audience and persona that we just mentioned before, and are they, interested into this topic or not, or how do we position our story as part of what they're interested in, and how they experience our brand and how they engage with us. And I think that has been that is totally part of that piece around, taking decision, influencing the business, advising the business decision makers internally in the organization. So keeping that link with the customer and putting the customer first is absolutely key, exactly as you said.
Yeah, if anyone's listening and feels like an order taker marketer at their organization, hopefully this conversation inspires you. Now, here's one more lesson. I love it because it's something I've struggled with a ton in my career. So you learn from Marit Metzla, Associate Director at Capgemini. You are powerful. So how did you learn this lesson, FX?
Yeah, I mean, this one was a little bit more anecdotal, but I because I'm not necessarily a native speaker in English, and a few years back it was maybe still difficult for me to speak in public. I was having a lot of anxiety about it, etc. And I had actually that anecdote that I mentioned is about a few years back we opened a new innovation center in Singapore. During the opening ceremony, I was asked to give a little bit of a speech, etc. at the last minute, which gave me a lot of anxiety. And actually, Marite was my colleague at the time, and is a facilitation professional, so she understands this very well. She gave me a very good tip when she saw my stress, and she was like, "Okay, come with me," and in front of the mirror, she told me, look at yourself and talk very loud and tell yourself you are powerful. So this is something that is really a little bit dumb to some extent, a little bit silly, but it works a lot, like kind of tell yourself you are powerful, believe yourself for like 1 minute, be ridiculous in front of your mirror, and then go into public speaking. And I think this is something that I still do. And to be honest, sometimes when I saw, people in my team or even my business leaders that were going like on TV heavy or things like this, and they were stressed, I tell them, yeah, just do that, or tell me you are powerful or something like this. And, that kind of changed your mindset. Also, it's so silly that it made you laugh a little and kind of bring the stress down, and that works quite well. And then you can go on and do your speech. And I think that is a bit of a tips and trick, to be honest, not really kind of something very strategic, but that works well. And that is something that has completely transformed my ability to speak in public. So I think I'm very grateful to Marite for that.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I mean, you have the best strategy in the world, but if you can't present them, it's not going to help. So I'm
exactly
very naturally introverted, so I'll take that lesson too for when I need to speak. But I'd say one thing when I present, I've been able to speak to kind of overcome some of that stuff. And the thing that worked for me was just kind of, instead of focusing on myself, focus on the other people. When you're presenting and speaking, you're helping them. But the one thing always in the back of my mind that I would worry about too, I started as a copywriter and, working in advertising, you got to pitch a lot of ideas. And marketing, you got to pitch a lot of ideas. And for example, I wrote an article recently, 30 headline tests. And, that article is not about, great creative pitches. It's about data. Hey, there was this title, this one worked better. That's it. This had better performance. So when you're presenting your marketing ideas, your marketing concepts, that's so core to our role. How do you bring the data in there to make sure, it's not just the confidence of speaking, but it's the confidence in what you're presenting to your leaders and your organization?
Yeah, well, so I mean, honestly, we have a marketing and communication campaign model in North America, which I think has allowed us to always kind of show the value of what we are doing. We consider, I don't want to enter too much into the details, but the way that I consider every campaign is from mind share to market share. So how do you create a conversation, kind of open a discussion, create some interest, and then at every step of the process go into basically at the end leads generation and selling. So from content that is, content and tactics that are, broad outreach, targeting, etc., to first level engagement through channels, etc., retargeting in North America, to basically kind of content that is more related to capabilities and values that we deliver, as a business. I think that's a little bit of the way that we look at it. We have published research recently from the Capgemini Research Institute, actually, to look into, what's the limit between creativity and data. In marketing, it's very often that those two are considered opponent, but it's very interesting to see that actually I think data-driven marketers are bringing more creativity to the table at the moment. You just talk about customer first, but what we see is that real-time marketing at the moment is able to bring and nurture creativity, because the creativity enhance agility and flexibility in the data-focused areas of the business. So, marketers are able to have real-time data in terms of how the customers realize, interact with content, or the audience interact with content, and be able to serve content accordingly, and to kind of very fast kind of produce new ways to engage and new produce. So actually the data and the way that you track data, that you collect it, is able to actually influence better positively the creativity. And I think as marketers, this is really interesting as we move towards being more data driven, not to lose that creativity element, but also not to consider them in opposition, but actually data can fuel creativity the other way around.
Absolutely, yeah, it's another input. It's another way to learn about the customer, right? Better serve the customer with your marketing messages. So, FX, we covered a whole wide world here, from China to Singapore to Hong Kong to France to North America, to all the different things about, being a marketer. So if you had to sum it up, what would you say, what are the key qualities of an effective marketer?
Yeah, I was in a workshop in Paris actually last week, and I think we worked around Greek mythology. And for me, Aristotle is the one that has the most, that has the perfect answer to your question.
Okay.
And he puts three elements to how to be persuasive. The first one is ethos, which is basically credibility. The second one is pathos, which is emotion. And the last one is logos, which means logic. And I think those three are basically the three elements of, basically being a marketer's mastermind, or being able to kind of persuade and bring campaign that matters, and campaign that impacts basically the business. So I defect to Aristotle to give a smarter answer than I could have given, because I think that one was absolutely perfect.
Very nice. Well, we always like taking a philosophical approach. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, FX. It's been a complete joy.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Daniel.
And thank you to everyone for listening. I hope you learned a lot.
Thank you for joining us for How I Made It in Marketing with Daniel Burstein. Now that you've gotten inspiration for transforming yourself as a marketer, get some ideas for your next marketing campaign from Marketing Sherpa's extensive library of free case studies at marketingsherpa.com. That's marketing, SHERPA.com.